Hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
That is great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so our podcast is about your journey in music and how you got to where you are today.
Amazing. I love to talk about that.
Awesome. So first tell me, you're from Canada, correct, originally?
Yes, I'm originally from Canada and now I'm in Nashville.
Very, very cool. Tell me about Canada and growing up there.
Canada is awesome. I have you ever been?
I have not been, but I've interviewed a lot of artists from Canada and it sounds amazing, and they have such amazing programs for musicians and artists that we do not have here. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely nice to be from a place where the government like really encourages the arts and kind of music and supports that as a career. So that's really cool. I was lucky enough to grow up kind of on both ends of Canada. I was born and raised till I was about 7 in Kamloops, which is on the west coast. So I
okay.
got to grow up in the Rockies, and then when I was around 7, we moved out to the East Coast, or I guess not necessarily the East Coast. We moved out to Toronto. So
Okay.
I kind of grew up in two major hubs and two of the major cities in Canada. So I got the best of both worlds growing up, which was really cool.
That's very cool. How much different is the West Coast of Canada to the East Coast? Is it similar to like the US?
Yeah, it's definitely I'd say Vancouver and kind of the west coast of Canada is very similar to like being out in LA or
Got it.
Seattle. It's got that kind of more laid back vibe, a little bit more outdoorsy, because you have the mountains and the ocean. There's a lot more to do just outside. And then yeah, the East Coast is especially like Toronto is very much like our New York.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. How did you get into music?
I grew up just having a love for it. I've always been singing whenever there's music playing, and my grandpa was an incredible musician. He's the musician in our family, and
Okay.
he would watch me as a kid because both my parents were working parents, so he would help them out, and I kind of got to grow to love music and see someone play music while he was watching me. So that's kind of how I I got into it. But it wasn't until the end of high school for me that I was really like, yeah, this is what I want to do as a career and not just like a passion.
What did your grandpa play? Was he a guitar player, a singer?
He actually was, he played saxophone, clarinet, piano, just all of those instruments. I've never seen him play guitar, but I'm sure he could have picked it up. He just had a natural ability to play all these incredible instruments.
That's cool. And was like growing up, what that's what he did for a career? He was a
N
musician?
No, he was a
Oh,
plumber. He was a
oh,
plumber.
okay.
So he did music because he loved it,
That's cool.
which is really cool, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if he was like some recording artist or something. Yeah.
I'm sure he could have been if he wanted to, but my mom and that side of the family actually grew up in a very rural part of northern BC, actually almost in Alaska. So,
Wow.
um, music wasn't a huge career up there. So
Right.
plumber it was. He had
Plumber
his
it
own,
was.
yeah.
Very cool. So you got introduced to music with your grandfather, and how did you begin to play? What was the first instrument you learned to play?
I learned to play guitar first.
Okay.
That was the first instrument. I played it kind of just off and on when I was younger. I picked it up. I loved Avril Lavigne, and I think there was a phase where I was like, yeah, I want to be that rocker chick playing like electric guitar. So I had that phase like probably most little girls
I was
did,
gonna
and
say, I think a lot of people had that same dream.
yeah, so I had that phase, but I was never really a great guitar player until I went to an arts high school for
Oh
2
wow.
years. Um, and we were kind of we're just emerged in different kinds of music, and it was very musical theater oriented, and that wasn't necessarily my passion. I was always drawn to the songwriting side of music, and kind of like I wanted to sing my own stories. I didn't want to, I mean, I love musical theater, but it just wasn't what I felt like was my kind of path in music. So I picked up the guitar and actually really threw myself into that in high school, and kind of mastered it. So that was, I mean, I technically started at like 8, but if you really want to be like, could I play that well? No, not until I was like 16.
Okay. And you said you went to an art high school. Was that
Yes.
something that you had to apply to get into? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've gone to a couple, or when I was younger, I kind of did a couple different high schools, and I started in a core French high school. So I my first language that I learned in school, and all my subjects were in French. And
Oh,
it came
wow.
time to kind of go to the French high school, and I made the decision that I wanted, if university or anything else was kind of in my future, because at that point I didn't necessarily really understand doing music as a career.
Hmm.
It was kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I want to be a rock star, but I didn't know if that was
Feasible.
yeah. So I decided that I wanted to go to an English high school, and I wanted to do the rest of my like 4 years of education in English versus French. So I made that choice, and I was kind of like debating between just going to a regular high school, and then there was this arts program at a high school that was, you could pick 2 majors and you had to audition. So I went in and sang a couple songs and did the vocal audition, and then they had me do a monologue and for the acting portion. So
Yeah.
I did a double major in drama and vocals.
Wow. What did you sing to get in? Was it a cover or your own stuff?
No, it was a musical theater piece. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it was a song from Les Mis,
Okay.
actually. I don't remember 100%, but I
Exactly.
do I do remember that it was from that musical.
Very cool. Nice. And you said when you finished high school is kind of when you started your music career. Tell me, how did that go for you, and how'd you get, on
Yeah,
it?
I started, well, it was the September that I was going into my final year of high school. So I went to um I've been kind of writing songs up until this point, and I was in an arts high school, so I kind of had an idea that this was more than just a hobby for me and a passion. This was something that I couldn't really see myself doing anything else. So it was a September, and the Canadian country music week that they do for the CCMAs every year is held at the beginning of September.
Hmm.
So I decided to go that year and kind of check it out and see what that was all about. And there was a lot of networking opportunities and just opportunities to kind of listen to panels and hear people talk about their experience with the industry and how they got into it and do's and don'ts. So I went to that, and I loved it, and seen that that was kind of something that I could do, and I got to listen to some songwriting rounds and see people who were really just excelling in that career, and they were doing it in Canada. I mean, you grow up and you hear a lot of musicians, especially in country, on the radio, and they're all from Nashville
Nashville.
or around there, so
Right.
being in Canada, it's kind of like, well, like I really only know like a couple Canadian artists like Shania and Paul Brandt who have like made that. So what does this look like for me?
Mhm.
So yeah, going to Country Music Week was kind of the start of it for me, when I really was able to be like, yes, that I can do this. This is what I want. And the following March, after that Country Music Week, I started to record my EP, my first EP that I ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, first music that I ever recorded, and my parents kind of made me a deal, that was like, "Hey, you can do this and you can pursue this, and we'll support you and stand behind you 100%, but you need to graduate high school." So I released my first single, right after I graduated, and
Oh, wow.
almost to the day of writing my last exam, and, yeah, so
Cool.
I
Wow.
followed through on my end, and yeah.
Yeah. So but you had the song recorded already? They just wanted you to make sure that you finished before you started doing anything?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. So tell me, how'd you record the record? Was that done in Canada?
It was actually recorded in Calgary, um, which was really great. I got to fly out there and do that, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a learning experience, never having recorded music before. It's a little jarring to hear yourself sing, on a mic for the
Right, hearing
first
yourself
time.
back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you hear yourself in recordings, especially because I was writing songs. I was doing voice notes and like
Mhm.
and recording what songs that I had written, but hearing it back on an um actual studio mic
Mhm.
is very different than a phone recording.
Sure.
So that was an interesting experience, and it was I was really lucky to have a vocal coach at the time who'd prepared me for that and who was kind of like, hey, um it's going to be really jarring and you're going to think that you sound bad, but it's really just like it's so raw and stripped down.
Mhm.
It's hard to not judge yourself the first time you hear it. So she kind of prepared me for that. And when I went in and recorded, the guys that I was recording with were like, "Wow, you're like one of the first girls who like is hearing themselves for the first time or that has not cried." So I
Like,
felt,
freaked out?
yeah, I was like, "Cool." I was like, "I'm
That's
really glad someone prepared me for this."
Yeah. Is it because, like, with a phone on a voice note, there's, like, some sort of compression going on there, like, when you're going into it? Or is the mics are
Yeah,
different?
it's definitely, yeah, I mean, it's also just such a lower, um, like a lower grade recording. I mean, a
Mm.
phone speaker is great nowadays, but back then, like, you're
Yeah.
getting every sound that's in the room. You're getting, and then when you're recording on an actual mic, you have these screens around you. It's a soundproof room. You have like the compression on the mic. It's just a different quality, and I mean, it's meant to pick up everything. It's
Right.
meant to pick up like the the little cracks, and
Mhm.
that's like the cool part of recording is to hear like every emotion that's in someone's voice.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it was definitely, I love it now. I love recording now, but back then was a little bit like, oh, is this how I sound?
Yeah, yeah, and was that the Breakdown EP?
Yes, that
Okay.
was.
And you put that record out by yourself, and
Mhm.
what'd you do after you had it recorded and you finished high school and now you're gonna be a
Now,
songwriter? What was the first step you did?
the first step I did was, I got in touch with some trackers for radio, and I started working with them, pushing my songs to Canadian country radio and doing the rounds, meeting whoever would sit down with me at radio stations, doing the interviews, playing my song. And I did that for two songs off that EP, for Breakdown and for Grandpa's Truck. And that was a really cool experience. I kind of got to really meet people in the industry and kind of like immerse myself into that, which was awesome. And yeah, and then I put out the entire EP right around the same time, the following year for Country Music Week, and I pushed that. And then yeah, and then I met more people and went right back into recording and did a couple more singles and then did a another EP, and then
The Brave
yeah,
EP?
the Brave EP, which which was such a different experience.
Yeah, tell me
Having
about how is it different?
Brave was different because I mean, I'd recorded before at this point. I worked with a couple different producers on Brave in the sense that it wasn't just one producer producing the EP as a whole. It was actually three different producers. So that was kind of cool to get three different people bringing three different kind of production styles
Mm-hmm.
onto one EP and making sure that it was still kind of told a story as a whole and still sounded cohesive. And so that was really cool. And
Was
they were all over the country too. So I got to go out to Vancouver to record a couple songs, and then I got to stay in Toronto area, like the GTA, to record a couple of songs, and one of them was actually recorded in Nashville. So that was my first Nashville recording experience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if you said you worked with multiple producers. I didn't know if it was in the same studio, but then you explained it. So there you go. So
Yeah.
tell me about so you went to Nashville for the first time and got to work on a record there on that EP.
Yeah.
How did that connection happen and getting down there
Well,
and finding a
I
studio?
I'd been to Nashville a couple of times.
Oh, prior to this. Okay.
Prior to that, I'd come down a couple of times for songwriting retreats, and kind of just using the connections that I'd made throughout country music weeks and Canadian music week and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Using those connections and being like, hey, I'm gonna come to Nashville. I want to write some songs. So I did that a couple of times, and then it came time to record the Brave EP, and there was one song on it that I really wanted kind of a different take on. I wanted it a little bit more bluesy and bluegrassy, and that was Homewrecker that I recorded, and it was actually Jason Berry, who is one of the producers that I worked with. He recorded Wishing on You and Liar. He's incredible, awesome human being, and he recommended that I work with David Kalmusky, who recorded Homewrecker. And I'd written with David, and him and I had gotten along very well, and he's just awesome. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd love to record with David, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really cool. So that was my first Nashville recording experience.
Wow. And with that EP, like even with the first release, were you touring at all, or are you just playing? Were you playing locally in
Yeah,
Vancouver area or wherever you
I
were living at the time?
I played in a couple different places. I didn't tour too much with the first EP, but I did a lot of like summer festivals and kind of took performances where I could get them. I was still pretty young and kind of I guess green to the whole full band performance aspect. But
Mm-hmm.
with the Brave EP, I actually did a cross Canada tour with that one, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was my first kind of um, first opportunity to really tour and have like multiple dates back to back, and it was incredible. And I'm really happy that I got to do it with that EP because getting to play those songs over and over again every night was awesome.
And did you do that tour on your own? Like just you an
Yes.
acoustic guitar?
No, I actually I had my band with me, and we did that tour. It was definitely a lot of kind of like splitting it up because we tried to do it where we had different legs. Like we had the West Coast leg where we did Vancouver and Victoria, and then we had parts where we did like Calgary and Edmonton, because they're a short drive from each other. So we were able to like rent a van and fly into Calgary and do a show, and then drive up to Edmonton and just drop off the vehicle. And we had the Vancouver show was cool because we went into Vancouver and did that show, and then we'd driven our rental car out to Victoria and played in Victoria, and then drove back on the ferry and flew home. And so it was split up it
Mhm.
wasn't just straight across country in a bus, but it was still really great.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And you're signed to a label, right?
No, I'm actually
Oh,
still independent.
you are
Yes,
independent.
I am.
Okay.
I have some team behind me. I have a really great team that I work with, but I have not signed with a label yet, which is just, I think, kind of it has been the right move for me throughout my career, kind of getting to um, experience just what it's like to do all of the work
Mhm.
myself. You know, I've had to learn like a lot of the business side of things, not just the music side of things, which I'm so thankful for, because it just, you know, whenever I do decide to sign with a label or that opportunity comes up, I'm prepared in the sense that I know the inner workings of what goes on behind the scenes, not just um, as an artist.
Sure. Yeah. And what made you like? When did you make the move down to Nashville?
It was about 2, 3 years ago. I did the driving back and forth for quite a while before I actually got the visa and made it permanent, or as permanent as you can be with a visa.
Hmm.
Um, so that was about 2, 3 years ago, actually, last month, back in beginning of September. So that was yeah, that was definitely like a big move. It wasn't just from a city to a different city. It wasn't like I was just going to like college and moving out from home. It's a whole new country, and
Right.
there was an immigration process involved. So yeah, it's definitely it was a big move.
I'm sure that was moving here. I'm sure it was probably quite a bit of a nightmare, like getting visas approved and everything else.
Yeah, it's definitely it's so funny because I grew up so close to the border, being in like near Toronto, you know, it's
Hmm.
just Niagara Falls is right there and you can
Right.
just go across to Buffalo. So I grew up so close to the border and did a lot of traveling to the US when I did cheerleading. And and yeah, it wasn't really, it didn't hit me until I was older that I was like, oh, like the US isn't just like our neighbor, like it's actually a different country.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, yeah, I'd grown up going so often that it wasn't like a weird foreign country. It wasn't like Italy to me, where I'm like,
Right.
oh, like I'm going to Italy. It's just, it's the US. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's still, they've got to make it, of course, a bit of a process to get here, I
Yeah.
can imagine.
And I mean, yeah, I completely understand why it is the way it is, and
Mhm.
I'm glad that I was lucky enough to be able to do the immigration and to move here. So it wasn't too much of a headache. I've definitely had some friends who have gone through way worse than me, and it's been a bit of a nightmare. But I was lucky enough that it wasn't. It definitely took a long time to get everything together
Mhm.
in order to do that, but it wasn't a painful process.
Well, that's good. Yeah. And you
Just
have some
definitely, yeah, just definitely a long one.
right, right. And you have some new music out now. You have a new
Yes.
record coming out?
I do. I've been spending the past couple of months releasing singles
Mhm.
and just kind of getting back into releasing music, because I've spent so long writing and working on this project, and kind of also just acclimating to Nashville. Um,
Mhm.
because it's very different from what I was doing back in Canada. It's a different town and so many different people, and yeah, so I really just took that time to acclimate and write for this new project. And yeah, so it's been recording and releasing the music this year in the midst of a pandemic,
Yeah.
and now I get to record the second half of the songs that I'll be putting on the EP in the next couple months. And I'm I'm a little nervous too. I mean, I recorded everything last year in October when
Oh,
we were pre-COVID, and
Mhm.
now kind of going back into recording this October, with COVID, recording looks a lot different now.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's been like almost a full year of this like pandemic happening. You know what I mean? It's
I
crazy.
know. It's I think what's crazier to me is that we all thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Right.
When we
Yeah.
were all like, yeah, yeah, it's just stay inside for 2 weeks and then we'll be fine. Like
Yeah,
that
then
was just
life will go on.
that I think that's the craziest thing to me, is that we keep being like, oh, it's gonna be okay. But I mean, is there, I read an article the other day where it was like, there's not, like, everyone keeps saying like when we go back to normal, and it's like, I don't know if like y'all realize that there's probably not going to be like a normal
Yeah,
from before COVID for a
we're
while.
living it. We're living the normal
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, maybe smaller shows or something like that will open up, but I mean, like, now it's just drive-ins and yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
virtual shows and
There's definitely some things that I've like seen happen throughout this pandemic where I'm like, why weren't we doing that before? Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, with movie theaters, they're like sterilizing the seats like
oh yeah, and they're
so well now,
removing
and
seats too. Did you see that? Like, so now it'll be
yeah,
like two and then like a gap and then two and then a gap.
yeah, and just the respect for people's personal space.
Hmm.
There's definitely some things that have happened throughout this pandemic where I'm like, well, that's kind of nice, but also sad that it's sad. But like definitely I hope that we keep up with the cleanliness and
Hmm.
respecting people's personal space post pandemics.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you for sure. Well, you said that you recorded last October, like a year ago,
Hmm.
um, and with like you started releasing singles. Was then did you have to stop, or like did you not start? Like, were you holding onto the record and then the pandemic hit, so you could kind of keep it, or was it like you
Um,
started releasing singles, you're getting ready to release a record, and it's like nothing?
yeah, it's definitely been plans just had to change.
Okay.
Like every plan that I had to change. I'd always planned to kind of we got the masters back in January. So I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to kind of, once we had the masters, build out the content and build kind of a game plan of when we were releasing, how far in between we were releasing, and I I released Hesitate April 24th. So that was the first single and the first time I'd released music in a really long time. And that was kind of always the plan, even before the pandemic. But a lot of the plans surrounding Hesitate had to change. I mean, I couldn't do a release show anymore in Nashville. I couldn't go back home for the summer to tour these songs. I
Hmm.
couldn't film a music video the way I'd originally planned. So plans just fell apart and had to be kind of just redone. It was back to the drawing board, but that was okay. And then Black and White was supposed to come out June 5th, but we actually postponed the release of that song because of everything that happened with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. It just was not great timing. So we just didn't feel comfortable promoting something
Right.
when everyone's attention should be on something else. It just wasn't right
Hmm.
for us. So I was lucky enough that I was able to change the release date and kind of take a step back, and we released Black and White a month later, and that those plans had to change as well. And then yeah, Selfish is now coming out almost a year later
Yeah.
to when it was originally recorded. Actually, I think we recorded Selfish. We started the actual band studio day October 2nd. Um
Wow. So it's like a year to the day.
It's a year to the day that the song is coming out, which wasn't on purpose, but is also a really cool thing to happen.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's really
Hmm.
cool. How have you been doing like the live stream stuff, like to kind of get the songs out?
Yeah, I've done a couple live streams, which is just, I mean, so weird to be playing. I mean, it feels like you're recording. It feels like you're recording like a video for like Instagram or Facebook,
Mhm.
um, without with that added pressure of being like there's people staring at me through this screen. And it's tough because it's hard to build an audience through Facebook Lives. So I've been lucky enough to kind of partner up with some great people who already have like music lover like followings, and their fans just want to see new music, and they've let me take over kind of their Facebook pages in order to play to those new fans. So that's been really cool. But yeah, it's definitely tough at adjusting to playing to people without being able to like see them.
Yeah. And I've heard it's odd when you're done with the song because of the latency, like the delay, that you'll just be sitting there waiting for like a clap or something. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've noticed that.
Yeah, I've definitely it's weird too because you're playing a song, and when you're live playing a song, nobody can ask you questions or like really make, I mean, they can ask you questions, but nobody really like is yelling like, "How was your day?" as you're like
Right.
singing a song. Whereas like when you're on a Facebook Live, you're like watching people be like, hey, how was your day? That's a really cool top. I like your guitar. This is a cool song. Wow. And you're like, I love it. I love being able to interact with people, but it's different being
Mhm.
able to see like people's reactions like through comments as you're playing the song and not getting distracted by that.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that being pretty, yeah, distracting. You're seeing the thumb ups go and the happy and the claps, and you're
Yeah.
trying to play and you're getting kind of distracted. Yeah, I could totally see that. Did you enjoy doing them though? Are they?
I do. I mean, it's kind of it's the best that I can do right now.
Mhm.
And I mean, I would give anything. There's nothing more that I'd rather be doing right now than like just playing to a room full of people and getting the chance to like see people's faces and watch their reactions to the stories that I'm telling through song. And I miss that so much, but that's not an option right now,
Mhm.
with people's health at stake. And so this is the safest thing. And it's still playing music. It's just um, there's just not that satisfaction right
Right.
when you're playing it. You just have to kind of like be like, well, this is the best that I can do right now. So I love it in that sense, but I definitely am craving the real thing.
Sure, sure. Hopefully, in sooner than later,
Yeah.
everything will be back to normal or something close to it.
Yeah, there's always a new normal that'll happen.
Totally, totally. Well, thank you, Shay, so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This has been a great chat, and
Yeah,
I so appreciate you taking the time.
of course. I do have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yes, I've gotten some really great advice over the years, and my two favorite pieces of advice. One was someone told me once that you should never be anything but delightful in this industry. Um, you never know who you're going to meet and who they know, and just making sure that you're nice to everybody you meet is so important, because you never know when that's going to play to your favor, or when someone's going to be in your corner. So that's really important. And the other one was just always to make sure that you don't let yourself get jaded. It's a industry that is built so much on rejection, and um, you get so many no's before you'll ever see a yes, and just making sure that you don't let that kind of sway you or tear you down or make you any less soft. That's very important, and that's definitely what's kept me going all these years.